Hi, my name is Martin, and in this episode I'd like to talk about a book. It's entitled Father Joe, and it was written by a gentleman by the name of Tony Hendra, H-E-N-D-R-A. Originally, at a very young age, Tony was very attracted to becoming a monk, and as he grew older, he totally moved away from that concept. He became successful in a career of comedy, of writing, and lost his original yearnings, but ultimately returned to his original desires of becoming very close to God. So that's probably happens where the idealism at the very beginning goes a bit astray, and then something happens in their life that kind of brings it back or returns it. Father Joe tells the story of Tony in England, who visits a monastery on an island, the island of Wight, W-I-G-H-T, off the southern coast of England. And it's an abbey, Quarr, Q-U-A-R-R, Quarr Abbey. And Tony becomes infatuated with the lifestyle of the monks. He desires to copy it, even though he is too young to become a member of the religious order. At the age of 14, he had an indiscreet relationship with a young married woman who was in her early 20s. She essentially seduced him. The husband of this woman finds out about it and kind of directs and accompanies Tony to this monastery to receive help from a monk, Father Joe. So the husband really knows that Father Joe is a very special man who has wonderful insights. Nicely, Father Joe never condemns or accuses Tony of wrongdoing, but rather provides a loving and kind mentoring relationship, one that Tony has not had with his own father or mother. Father Joe never mentions the words, "You were wrong," or "You are guilty," but rather says, if there's any sin you may be guilty of, it's selfishness. Imitating the lifestyle of a monk, Tony starts to say the prayers, the liturgy of the hours or the divine office at the required times of the day. He changes his lifestyle to not be a part of the whims and desires of being a normal teenager and gives his life to following God. He is an excellent student and is ultimately accepted into Cambridge University with a scholarship. His parents are excited beyond belief, but he has no desire to go there, but rather go to the island of Wight and become a monk with the Benedictine order. After he graduates high school, he spends a whole summer with the monks and is fully intending to stay there and join the religious life. However, before the end of the summer of that year, his father calls the rector of the abbey to find out when is he leaving to go back to Cambridge. Not knowing that Tony has deceived them about this, they kind of encourage him to attend Cambridge and receive a degree from the university. They perhaps knew that his life would go in a totally different direction, and it surely did. I think at that young age, they wanted to give him another opportunity to really decide whether going to college was the right move or perhaps staying there and just going straight into religious life. Tony started to go to the theater and becomes totally committed to acting and appearing before audiences. He signs up for all kinds of acting positions at Cambridge and becomes involved in a way that he thought would never be possible. He starts to move away from the desire to become a monk and move to Quarr to join the monastery. Father Joe indicates that there is much good in Tony's desire for acting and to change the world through laughter. They kept in contact through letters. He ultimately is in touch with another student who is also a very beautiful woman and excellent actress, and they have an affair. They live together and get married, but there is no real love, just a physical attraction, and that turns into just staying together for a number of years, really only for the children that they had together. And Tony gives full responsibility to his being for the reason for the breakup. She was fine and trying to keep it going, but he was just going in different directions. His career begins to take off, though. In the early 70s, Tony's first major assignment was the initial editor of the National Lampoon during its early years of fame. National Lampoon was created by members of the staff of the Harvard Lampoon, and they asked Tony to become their editor-in-chief. The basis of the National Lampoon was a magazine copy of Mad magazine that debuted in 1952. It was targeted to the very young adults, mostly male, readers. The National Lampoon became a bit broader. They aimed it to often a snarky, comedic content through the parody of everyday life. In essence, what can we say that will bring down the roof of the house of pretensions all around our country was their objective. The magazine's heyday was in the 1970s and was highlighted by the Animal House movie at the end of the 70s. Tony became successful and didn't need Father Joe at this time. There are others that could replace him with business and life decisions. Tony Hendra moved on to the theater in a play entitled Lemmings that introduced John Belushi and Chevy Chase in the off-Broadway production that was a huge success. From there he went back to England and co-creating Spitting Image, a tremendously successful TV series. After that, his career took a downward turn when he fell into the use of drinking and drugs. Here he was, with a failed first marriage and absolutely nowhere to go. He met his second wife, Carla, and they were very much attracted to each other. She was about 15 years younger than he was, and despite the attraction, he was hesitant to go through marriage again. Carla is successful in marketing and advertising and doing very well in her career and also financially, while Tony is just floundering from job to job. After a few years together, she continually notes that he says he wants to marry her, but never offers the invitation. Finally, after a fun-filled weekend in Atlantic City, New Jersey, she is driving back to their home in New Jersey and she says, "When are you going to ask me to marry you?" He stalls and says, "Soon as this next project is done." She says, "You have been saying that for the last 3 years, and it never happens." She pulls off the side of the New Jersey Turnpike and asks him again, and he gives the same answer, afraid to commit once again. She says, "Now or you are getting out of the car." He doesn't, and she gets to open his door and pushes him out on the side of the turnpike. She then drives off. He has only $200 to his name and is sitting on a guardrail on an incredibly busy highway. Luckily for Tony, she goes down one exit and returns. She asks again, "When?" He says, "I will." And they have a beautiful wedding, not totally easy between the two of them because of their fiery nature, but they have a good relationship and a good life together and bring into the world 3 beautiful children. This brings us back to Father Joe. You've been probably wondering, where did he go? Tony Hendra, after all of this, longed to get back to his mentor. Yes, there were communications through letter writing, often more from Father Joe than the reverse, but he wanted now to go back to the source of his original happiness and enlightenment. He brought his young children and Carla to meet the man that constantly had an impact on his life. Whatever problems he had, he always found a loving friend in Father Joe at Quarr. Toward the end of Father Joe's life, Tony did get to meet him at the monastery. He sensed that this would be the last time he would have the opportunity of being with him. On this visit, Tony knew Father Joe was failing. He had just lost sight in one eye and was trembling. They said their goodbyes and hugged one last time. Upon leaving Quarr, Tony spoke to a number of people to let him know if Father Joe was close to the end, and gave his phone number to several of the members at the monastery. He called regularly, but was assured that Father Joe was still okay and might make it to his upcoming 70th anniversary as a priest. On a business commitment, Tony was on a yacht in the Caribbean, going to Montego Bay, and totally out of range with cellular service for a number of weeks. When he returned, there were no messages from Quarr, and he was delighted. Actually, Father Joe did make it to his 70th anniversary, but was unable to attend the celebration as he was much too weak. When Father Joe did pass, Tony found out that he was not alone. He always felt that his relationship with Father Joe was unique and special. He found out that there were hundreds of people that Father Joe had a special one-on-one relationship with. He was astounded, but that was a gift that Father Joe had. He treated them all as special and the only one, kind of like a saint. So thank you very much for taking the time to listen. I hope you enjoyed, and farewell until the next time.